Last vote. 20th person voted out from Australian Survivor, 7th member of our jury. Matt, need to bring me a torch.
Welcome back, guys, to another video, and hello to anyone listening to our podcast. We're joined today by a very special guest, Matt Tarrant. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. And I guess for people that aren't aware, you're a magician, mentalist, and ex-survivor contestant. Have I sort of hit all the...
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So magician and mentalist is what I normally, I guess, claim myself as. But yeah, I also was once on an island for a couple of months as well. So back in 2016 I was on Australian Survivor as well.
Absolutely. We'll touch on that a little bit later. I'm very excited to have you on the show. The sort of the world of magic and mentalism's a world that is not often dug into, but it's one that I'm very interested to pick your brain about. But first of all, you're in Brisbane for your new show, Unsolved. Premieres at the Powerhouse tomorrow. How are you feeling sort of day out from the launch?
Yeah, pretty good, to be honest. We've done this show a fair bit now. So I've been performing this show for 3 years. So I'm pretty used to performing it. So I'm not really... I don't get too many pre-show nerves or jitters anymore, so feeling pretty good. Should be a good time. It's my second time in Brisbane, and we were here last year and just had a fantastic time at the Wonderland Festival, so stoked to be asked back, and I think it should be a good couple of nights.
Beautiful. So I guess touching on the show, Unsolved sort of lends itself to, I guess from an outside interpretation, being about tricks that haven't been sort of performed or mastered before. Is that a fair...
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think Unsolved kind of came about because we were finding that people would go see a magic show wanting to kind of know how some of the stuff sort of worked.
Yeah.
It's not every audience member, but some want to know kind of how it works. And we wanted to kind of package this all up into a show where at the end, the ending for this show is something which is so impossible that you just can't actually really solve it.
Yeah.
So it should leave you completely unsolved. And that's kind of, I guess, our hope. But also, I guess, throughout the show, we kind of touch on the point of, if you do work out how it works, it doesn't actually really matter as well. And also, that shouldn't be why you're going to see a magic show.
No.
You should be going to see a magic show to have fun and have a good night. And we kind of break that down into a few stages throughout the show. But it ends with this finale, which kind of pieces it all together quite nicely and just doesn't make sense. So it really does leave the show completely unsolved.
Beautiful. Well, I guess another question I have is, when you're writing and creating new tricks and sort of new material, does it ever sort of get really difficult to try and break the wheel, I guess? Because, I mean, everyone's got the same sort of...
Yep. It's the hardest thing about being a magician is trying to be new, trying to do something that hasn't been done before, because everything's been done before, and then trying to put your own kind of slant on it as well. Because you want to, like, quite often a lot of magicians will perform the same trick, but we need to make sure as our audience members don't realise it's the same trick and it looks fresh and new for them as well, I guess, because there's only so many things you can do in any industry really, but magic in particular has a lot of constraints over what we can actually do and what physically is possible. Having to come up with new tricks and having to come up with new tricks that no one has seen before, it's hard. And 6 months of my every year for me is literally spent locked in an office trying to come up with solutions to problems or new tricks that people haven't seen before. So we do that a lot. It's difficult. I don't know if it's ever going to get easier. And I think with like the creation of the internet, it even makes it harder for us as well now because people can see magicians from all around the world performing.
Yeah.
So you can't just do something that they might not have seen. It's on the internet. They've probably seen most of it before.
I feel like magic is sort of it's almost like music genres. You've got like invisible boundaries, and everyone's got different styles, but everyone's sort of got to be slightly different.
Totally. Like it happens a lot with magicians where you see a magician steal another magician's act. And there's this weird kind of cross boundary where magicians will actually teach each other tricks as well. So, and they sell tricks too.
Okay.
So you can buy a magician's trick, which sounds weird because if you were to perform it the same way they performed it, they'd be really angry.
Okay.
But they've sold their trick. So, like, quite often when you sell a magic trick, you're selling a technique. But when you first get into magic, you kind of just almost carbon copy exactly what you've seen performed. So it's this constant great debate in magic about, you know, what is the level to how much you actually can take from someone. I, to be honest, try to do as much of my personality into my magic as I can. I don't try to be anyone else because I feel like no one can copy what I am, and if they are, then it's going to be pretty blatantly obvious. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a tricky thing, and you can look literally on YouTube. There's plenty of videos about magicians stealing other magicians' acts, and it's just blatantly obvious that they have.
Is there ever sort of massive magician beef?
Heaps, yeah. We are the most petty organisation of people you've ever seen. Like the internet beef and the arguments that we have. Quite often they're quite funny and laughable, but like there's also instances where you can see it's just not great. So a good example is this magician called Piff the Magic Dragon. Now his magic show is done and he's dressed in this ridiculous dragon outfit, and he's got a puppy dressed as a dragon. So if anyone were to steal that act, it's pretty obvious where they got it from. Someone did.
Really?
Someone stole the exact act, the exact routine, did it also on a talent show like Piff had, but instead of having a puppy, I think he had a hamster dressed as a dragon. And that's obviously obvious what's happened, and it blew up on the internet. It was just this constant back and forth between them, and that was at least a pretty obvious side you could take because you knew who the original act was, I guess. But yeah, magicians are petty. We love an argument.
Yeah, and people just have no sort of filter either by the looks of things. So the question I did want to ask you is, I've noticed lately this shift towards the term illusionist instead of magician. Is there a difference between the two?
So an illusionist is usually like a kind of grand scale magician, I think. So someone that will like do things like sawing in half and like big disappearances and big acts and that sort of thing. So I don't really consider myself an illusionist, but if someone were to call me one, well, I'm not going to really link it either. Like, it doesn't really bother me. So I think like if you were to look at it from black and white, usually an illusionist is someone that does big, grand-scale illusions.
Yeah.
A magician is someone that does more smaller-scale magic. But there is kind of a point where someone will just call themselves one or the other, and it doesn't really matter. So yeah, there's not really a hugely interesting answer to it, but it's just more so usually the scale of it is kind of the difference between a magician and an illusionist, I think.
Okay. And sort of going into the crux of magic without giving too much away, obviously, I want to sort of look into the science of it all, because magic and illusions, I mean, people are onto it now. They know they're being tricked, but they're not functioning. Their brain's still not telling them that it's sort of happening. I guess when you're performing a trick, how do you make sure that you engage with someone and make them believe it, even though they know they're being tricked, I guess?
Yeah, it's tough because you have to. We talk about this in my show where there's an issue with being a magician, and the issue is that you know I'm a magician.
Yeah.
So everything I'm about to do is going to be a trick. So yeah, I guess have to try to either break that apart by just adding more of your personality and humour and whatever that might be to it, or doing something so mind-numbingly impossible that you can't break it down, and there's no way for you to work out how it works. And that's how I try to take it in this show. And there's one trick that I do at the end, and the reason I do it is to try to keep people awake, because it's that impossible. It doesn't make any sense. How is it possible? But people still come up with their own solutions. No one's been right yet, but people come up with their own solutions. And it's just one of these things. You don't. For me as a magician, I try not to worry too much about it.
Yeah.
And I just hope that really people just kind of enjoy what they're seeing and what they're witnessing, even if they do know that It is just a trick. And not stress too much, where, you know, maybe some magicians probably focus a little bit more on really wanting to make sure what they're doing is impossible, it is fooling, and that sort of stuff. I try to find myself somewhere in the middle sometimes, so I'm not worry so much about it.
Yeah.
As long as I'm still fooling people, I guess. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah, it's what you're being paid for. Yeah. So when you're first starting out in magic, and I mean when you first started, what sort of do you learn first when you are performing magic, you know, from here to me away? Is it sleight of hand that you
So I think most magicians will start off doing like card stuff for most magicians, so close-up card magic, and then maybe they'll go into coins, or they'll decide they want to start doing stage stuff, or get into mentalism, which is the mind-reading magic, or whatever it might be. They kind of find their niche from there. So for me, I just read books, I was watching DVDs, watching other magicians perform, and kind of eventually found the path that I wanted to take, which is kind of a mix of all of those things I just sort of said. I had to kind of do a bit of everything. And yeah, it's one of these things, I think you just, I guess kind of like a musician, they find a specific type of music they like, and they decide to become that. Magic's kind of the same, you find a type of magic you like, and you decide to do that too.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess moving away from the magic as well, I mean, people would riot if we had you on the show and didn't chat a little bit about Survivor.
Yeah.
And I mean, Survivor, I mean, it's everywhere around the world. It is a massive show. I guess before we go into the questions and our fan questions as well, was it as big a life changer as people say it is?
Yeah. It's my answer to this question is always pretty much it's the best thing I've ever done, and also the worst thing I've ever done. It is an absolutely life-changing experience that I was really fortunate to be part of, and I was really fortunate that I made it as far as I did, that I got to experience all of it as well, basically. So, you know, really fortunate. But you definitely come back with, I guess, a new perspective on a lot of things in life. It probably messes you for a little bit as well, if we're being honest. And but you do take away a lot of good stuff from it as well. So it definitely changes you immensely, and it probably also changes a lot of the people around you as well, in a way. You know, I know for me, my wife, she probably would have changed a bit from Survivor, as some of my other relationships probably have as well. It's a weird thing to say when you just look at it as a TV show, but there is also a lot of real life element to it as well, which does kind of make the biggest difference in a person's life.
Yeah. I've heard a little bit about, I guess, reality TV in general, and I think it was from, I forget the name, but it was a woman who sort of is the casting agent of a lot of reality TV shows, and she said when you go on a reality show, you're too famous to work at a day job, but not famous enough to make money from it. Is that sort of accurate?
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I would say that's accurate for probably 99% of people from reality TV, I would say. And it's not that you're too famous for a day job either, but I think in your mind you get to a point where you're like, oh, maybe I am big enough to not do a day job, and maybe I will try to do something else from it.
Yeah.
So you quite often find a lot of people that go on a reality TV show, for 12 months after the show, they're not working.
Yeah.
And they literally, they think that something might come from it, or they might do other stuff, or they start becoming Instagram influencers, or whatever it might be. And the unfortunate thing is for a lot of those people, it just doesn't last to that level.
Yeah.
For the rare occasions it does, and it can, but in my experience, the people that I've been on the show with that have come back and have gone to work are usually the ones that are better off in the long term, at least from a mental capacity, because the ones that aren't working, it's a strain, and it's a weird kind of place to put yourself back into. So yeah, but that's 100% spot on.
So when you came back from the island, I mean, obviously there's got to be a gap between filming and when it airs.
Yeah, a couple of months.
How long sort of after the show aired were you back performing? And
so I had a gig that week when I came back that I was meant to go on the Friday. It was a corporate gig, and it's the only gig I've ever said no to. Only gig I've ever cancelled. So I got someone else to do it for me. And it wasn't because I was like, well, I'm too big for this now. It was more so I was like, I'm just cooked. Like, my head was not in a space where I could be communicating with humans on any kind of scale. So that was the only thing. But literally, probably a week later, I was back doing shows. And it was definitely, probably the first few shows were weird. It was a bit different.
Yeah.
Because you were kind of in this space between being on the show, but the show not have actually even airing it either. So no one knew that I'd been on the show or what I did on the show or anything like that. But I did, and it was this weird kind of thing where you almost wanted to be like, no, guys, I was just on Survivor. I did pretty well. Like, you should know that. Like, not from any kind of big-headed sort of way, but just, I think you're in this position on a reality show where for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for however long you're out there for, you are the prime focus of hundreds of people around you, and you're like their character. You're their, they look after you. They're always filming you. You're a special person. And then you come back to reality and you realise that you're not that special. Just normal. You are one in billions of people, and it kind of it's a bit of a knock. So it's this weird thing. And I remember a couple of days after I got back, me and my wife were walking through just a shopping centre, and I must have zoned off. And she's like, "Are you alright?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm feeling odd." And she's like, "What is it?" I'm like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Do you feel anonymous?" And I'm like, "That is it." I do. I feel like I'm a no one, and I also know I am a no one, but like for a while there, you were a focus on all these different people. You had videographers that were filming you the whole time, you had contestants that were with you the whole time, you were part of this big beast, and then you're not. So it's a very weird scenario, and it's really hard to explain that without coming off as weird, and without people that maybe haven't been through it truly understanding. Which I think is kind of why a lot of Survivor and reality TV contestants sort of stick together for a little bit after the show, because we are probably the only ones that kind of really get it, because we've been through it too. So we kind of sometimes help each other get through it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're more of a hindrance on each other, but sometimes we try to help.
And I was sort of, as a fan of the show, as a lot of us are, I wanted to sort of get into a little bit of behind the scenes, without giving away sort of the magic of the show. But my questions come more hygiene and sort of everyday life. In terms of showering and brushing your teeth and stuff, is it literally as barren as it is? You shower in the ocean and then use like leaves to...
Yep. Okay. Yep, so you shower in the ocean, you use sand as soap, and to brush your teeth you use palm fronds, which are like the middle of a palm leaf. You brush your teeth with that, or charcoal. I came back and my teeth were better than they've ever been though. So
really?
Whiter than ever. Which I'll probably put down to the fact that I didn't have really much sugar or salt or whatever for the last 2 months. It was just rice and beans. But yeah, that element of it is exactly what you see on the show. Okay.
And in terms of sort of...
toilets?
Is it a pit or is it...
So there's this debate about Australian Survivor. It started because of Russell Hands, who is a contestant from America that did our version. And he came back saying, "No, we've got portaloos and like en-suites." That's not true. So when at camp you have a hole in the ground with a wooden box on top of it which has a toilet seat. But there's no walls. You are in the middle of a forest doing it. And I, from what I understand, the hole is there in the wall, in the floor. Sorry, because I think in Fiji and Samoa, there's like legislations about what you can and can't do. You probably can't just be doing your business all over the place. So that's why they have that. And then I guess there are some scenarios where you go to a challenge and they might not have time to dig a giant hole there, so there might be a portaloo. But we're talking like a Fools Festival day 4.
Oh, yuck.
So this isn't like the Ritz Hotel. This is like you have to wait till you get back to the hole because the hole's nicer. So that's kind of the level. So I think when everyone hears the word portaloo, they just think, "Oh, that must be nice," and it's not. When 24 disgusting humans that have been living on an island for 50 days are using it, it's not great.
Oh man. So everyone must really stink
Yeah.
there.
So we stink. You stink like just, I guess, a BO, I guess, but also smoke as well because of the fire that's going the whole time. So I remember when like we'd be hanging around producers going to a challenge or whatever, and they would just be like, "You guys reek today. It's bad." But we didn't smell like
You lose the sort of...
We lost all that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we probably it wasn't the best smell. And then we came back and our bodies had been living on an island, starving and eating rice and beans. So we probably smelled a little bit after the game as well. I think I don't know. My wife really enjoyed spending time with me. Late at night in bed, if I was getting the Samoans, the Samoan wind running through it, wasn't great.
And I guess the other thing too, you're in the sun all day. Do you get given sunscreen and things like that? They're not...
If we didn't have sunscreen, I would die. I'm the whitest person you've ever seen. And I remember I took my shirt off once on the whole show. Like, as in like once where I was off for at least more than 30 seconds. Because I was so terrified. I've got really bad skin. I've been really badly burnt in the past. And I just knew if I got sunburnt, I'd be sent home because it was going to be that bad. So you do get sunscreen. They do remind you to put it on. Some of the people didn't. They got burnt. But I was adamant that I did not want to get kicked off Survivor because I was sunburnt.
At least they took care of you then. And I guess you touched on it before. I know Pia also came out and sort of said that while you're at camp, you have 40 crew people just around you all the time. Is that accurate as well? Are you just sort of surrounded by...
Yeah, probably not 40, but you do definitely have like a large amount of people around you. But you forget about it in a way.
Yep.
So when you're at camp, usually you have somewhere between 1 and 4 camera crews there. And a camera crew is a cameraman, an audio guy, and a producer. Basically, usually the 3. So there might be like somewhere between maybe 10 and 12 people at the camp or at sections of the camp.
Yeah.
So there's people there, but probably after day 1 you forget they're there.
Okay.
And you'll say things and you're like, oh God, is there someone filming this or not? You just sort of forget they're there.
Yeah.
Because they're very good at staying hidden.
Okay.
You're also not allowed to communicate with them at all, so you're not allowed to talk to them. They're not allowed to talk to you.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to like eat or drink in front of you and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So you don't really connect to those people, which kind of makes it maybe even more invisible. Which is a strange thing. Like I didn't meet these camera guys and the audio guys until after I got voted off, and then we actually got to chat for the first time, and it was really weird because these guys have seen me cry, they've seen me break down, they've seen me like win challenges. I couldn't even tell you what their names were.
Yeah.
That was a weird thing to kind of break down 50 days of stuff to these people that were strangers, but they knew me more than almost anyone else would know me.
Yeah, that's such a like sort of foreign thing to wrap your head around. We have had some fans sort of write in and ask some questions.
Okay.
So we had I'll let the names out too. So we've had Letitia ask, are contestants tipped off about idol clues and idol locations? In this past season, everyone seemed to just miraculously find them.
So no, we're not. I think it probably looks miraculous because of how it's edited, but you will find that we do look for idols. Like I remember throughout my season, everyone kept saying, "Oh, why are these idiots looking for idols?" I looked for idols at the very least 5 hours a day. It was the one thing I was doing. Whenever I went to the beach, whenever I was going to get water, always looking for idols.
Yeah.
I just never found one, so they didn't show that because that would be really boring TV. And quite often with idols, if you do find them, you need to tell producers because the producers need to know what the story is.
Yeah.
But there might be a time where you find an idol and a producer might not be there as well.
Yeah.
So in those scenarios, from what I understand, they then just put it somewhere and say, just pretend you've just found it for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's not like they've set it up for you or that they've given you an idol. It's more so you found an idol, but we need to see it because we need to make sure we can show it to the people watching at home. But yeah, I definitely think it does at times look like it's easier than it is. But these camps are huge. Idols could be anywhere. It's never as easy as it looks. And people just do look for idols a lot, and just sometimes it maybe comes off as it's easier than it was. I'm not sure why that is, if that's because they've had to rehide it or whatever it is. But yeah, we definitely look for idols. Sometimes we're lucky enough to find them.
Beautiful.
Sometimes we're not.
The beauty of editing. So Peter asks, going into camp, what were your first impressions of your tribe mates? That's a big question.
It's a big question. When I was in Sanapu, which was the original tribe, we just kind of thought we were pretty strong. We looked pretty good. Like the four guys, it was myself, Connor, Sam, and Pete, and we were all like relatively. There was no one bad. Like there was no one bigger or too old or whatever. Peter, who was our older guy, was kind of like still fit. I was probably the least fit of them all, and like though I'm chubby and a magician, I can still do some things. So like we were and our girls were like super strong. Like Brooke and Flick and Kylie were just and Bianca were all really strong women. So we're pretty confident, to be honest. But I probably also, like I would in most social situations, I felt like I was probably an outsider, which is probably me in most scenarios, so it probably would have been different whatever tribe I was in. But yeah, instantly I just sort of thought we were in for a good chance, and maybe even if I was an outsider, I should have enough time to get into one of the groups and become friends with someone at least. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And then Eden, sort of talking on Sanapu as well, Eden said, did you ever consider making a move and flipping on Sanapu before the final 7?
Yeah, heaps. Yeah. You think about everything, and like especially I'm a big Survivor fan as well, so I was as frustrated as everyone else watching me at times on the show, going, make a move, you fool, like they're doing you in. But like I also wasn't lucky enough to see what we were all watching when we watched it at home as well. But I definitely was thinking about different moves to make. But at least for me, I think probably Brooke especially was really good at making me feel comfortable in our position. And I never felt from her anyway that there was any distrust or any reason to flip necessarily on her.
Yeah.
And especially probably towards the end bit, I was confident going up against almost any of those people. I felt probably, except for maybe Brooke, I probably could have beaten the other two. Sam maybe because he was his charity sort of stuff, but I kind of felt that I was a good enough speaker, and I had enough in my resume that I probably had enough story at the end to probably do okay. Yeah. But yeah, there was plenty of times I thought about it. I thought about everything out there. There wasn't a time that I wasn't thinking about what to do. It's just kind of didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he also asks, who are you rooting for in the upcoming Survivor All-Stars?
Well, only 8 of the contestants have been announced.
Exactly.
So
of the 8.
I don't know who else is playing the game, and I also don't know who wins. Look, I've got to support my SA boys. So I know Nick's been announced. I think Henry might have been announced as well, I think. So I hope those boys do quite well. There might be another SA guy, I don't know. But if there were, I'm sure I would support them too. So anyone from SA, or to be honest, I'd like to see one of the Series 1 people go quite well as well. The Sanapu 4 of Flick, Brooke, myself and Sam, I was always happy if any of those guys won. So I think Brooke and Flick are out there now, and if one of those won it as well, I'd be pretty happy for that too.
Amazing. And yeah, we have no idea who is on. Well,
no,
we genuinely don't. But and then we had a question from Michelle, and it says, the banter you had with the Australian Survivor Twitter guy was all in good fun, but it started to annoy me.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
How did you feel about it all?
Well, I'm not sure how to answer that because I was involved in it, so I enjoyed it. The Survivor Social guy, we got along well. He was a bit of a laugh, and I think they probably realised that people would go along with giving me crap and paying me
Yeah.
out. So, and they were very nice to me, and they did message me a couple of times and say, "Are we taking this too far?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't really care. I'm pretty easygoing. You can say whatever you want to say." There was a couple of times I remember I messaged him and I'm like, that was pretty harsh. But look, it was fun. My guess is he's now moved on, so it might not continue. I think it might still annoyingly continue, I'm sorry to say, Michelle, a little bit. But yeah, it's one of these things. I enjoy Twitter. I'm pretty active on it, and yeah, I thought it was fun. But if it annoys you, Michelle, I'm sorry. Maybe just hide the tweets or something.
Just mute.
Just mute me.
And
but please, don't follow me. Follow me, Michelle. I need your love.
And the last one is actually from me. Luke is arguably the most popular player in sort of recent.
Second to me, obviously.
Of course, yeah, of course. That's why I said arguably. Arguably.
Some would argue.
Some.
Not many, but some.
So hypothetically, had you two been on the same tribe together, would you have voted him off as soon as you could, or worked with him?
Luke is such a tricky one because Luke is genuinely such a ripping dude. I've been really lucky to meet him and his family, and talk to him a number of times, and he's just a dude. So he's one of these guys that I think he would be someone really fun to play with, but also really fun to get out as well. Yeah. So I don't know. Hypothetically, if I was ever to play with him, I think it would do an injustice to the TV show to have him go too early. But everyone should know you're never going to beat him at the end.
Yeah.
And, it's one of these things. So he has to go at some point, but I think he'd be a fun person to play with, at least for a while. So you'd have to play with him for a bit, surely.
Surely. Well, that just about wraps it up. And thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us, Matt.
My pleasure, man.
And for anyone that's in, by the time this will air, it'll be a little bit out of the Brisbane dates, but if you're in Perth or Adelaide early 2020, make sure you jump to a show.
Yeah, or if you're in Brisbane, you got a time machine, come back and buy some tickets.
Exactly.
But yeah, Adelaide and Perth, I'm heading across in 2020, and I'll be doing some other eastern states and some northern stuff later in the year as well. So chuck us a follow on Insta and Facebook and all that to get those dates.
Absolutely. And if you've liked what you've heard or want to hear any more, make sure you like and subscribe to our page. It does do us a lot of good, even though it's an annoying plug. And you can find us across all socials at 78amped. I'll get in trouble if I don't say that. So again, Matt Tarrant, thank you very much.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.